So West Ham United did what we all predicted and went to Ashton Gate and lost in the replay. David Moyes made as much of a nose up as it's probably possible to make an FA Cup tie. Really, a couple of injuries to key players in the home leg, and rather than just losing and going out and saving everyone else the journey and the arduous heartache of watching us inevitably lose the replay at Ashton Gate, we drew, forced another game, cut short the winter break, and cue pandemonium among the fan base once again, particularly the Moyes out brigade. But as I promised you earlier in the week, we'll try and put that behind us and focus back on the Premier League again. Me and Jonesy will be back for the usual format podcast next week. But in the meantime, I am here, Will Pugh, joined by Hal from the Sheffield United Way, once again, returning guest on the show. How had some positive comments last time. I think we had quite an open and frank discussion, and your views are always appreciated here. So we're glad to have you back ahead of this weekend's game at Bramall Lane. You've got a new manager since we last played you. That 2-0 victory. Yeah, well, yeah, newish. Yeah. First of all, before we go into the semantics, what's the general feeling among yourself and your fellow Blades at the moment?
Well, I would never be one to speak for fellow Blades, but the general vibe from what I'm gathering on the forums and people abusing me on direct messages is that generally welcoming Chris Wilder back. We're playing better football now. We've changed our formation, despite Wilder being the man that brought in this three at the back, the wing backs, the overlapping centre backs, and Paul Heckingbottom carried on his good work. It's bizarrely Chris Wilder who's dropped us to a back four, which we haven't played since the Slavica Jokanovic days. It's a throwback, which some will say is working. Others will say that we possibly have the same amount of points now as we probably would have done if we'd kept Paul Heckingbottom, because we got points perhaps where we were expecting and then dropped points where we shouldn't. Luton at home being a prime example, but then again, maybe we wouldn't have got anything at Aston Villa. So, but Brentford at home, we'd probably have said, yep, we can pick up points there, and we did. And then that Luton game, that's going to be the one. That's to be the one. If we go down with a whimper, we'll look back at that one and say that's probably where our hope ended.
Yeah, I mean, just 9 points at the moment. Everton it is in 17th, and no points. Sorry, Everton in 17th with 17 points. So you're like a fair way adrift, and I guess points deduction permitting, it's sort of easy to write you off at the moment. Are you doing that, or has the change in manager? You mentioned there you might have the same amount of points, but is there anything new you're seeing in the performances that makes you feel, given a bit of time or in a bit of time, that points per game ratio might increase?
Well, it has to, if we're going to have any chance. But yeah, I'm buoyed by the performances. They've been better. You could argue that losing at Chelsea 2-0 is the same as losing at Chelsea 5-0. And, we were losing 5-0 at Arsenal under Paul Heckingbottom. We were getting hammered quite often. I'm not using that term because I'm speaking to a West Ham fan, but we were. And I guess that it's looking better, from a kind of PR point of view. Sheffield United aren't getting beaten 8-0 anymore, but we're still losing the games we're expected to lose. And we're just putting up a better fight. We played really well at home against Liverpool, lost. But there has been some green shoots of recovery. We've been in every game, and we weren't under Paul Heckingbottom. So you take that as a positive. The fact that we did really well in the Cup, it was a throwback to what we expect Sheffield United to play like in that match. But admittedly, it was Gillingham in the FA Cup third round. We should be beating Gillingham comfortably, and we did. But it was nice to see that again. It's been a long time since I've got to half-time and thought, we've won this game. That's fantastic. Put the feet up and just enjoy the football. That hasn't happened for, this entire season. So, yes, there's little bits of hope, absolutely.
Yeah, I find the word should tends to be like the enemy of all happiness, particularly when it comes to football. West Ham should have beaten Bristol City. We should have beaten Bristol City, particularly the fact that we had 2 bites at that cherry. But as we know, it doesn't always come to fruition. When you mentioned the performances are getting better, I know this is actually a more clever question than it sounds, I think. But what does that look like? Obviously, are you just defensively more resolute? Are you actually a bit more threatening in front of goal? Bit of both? Well, what does it look like?
It looks like both of those things. We are not, as I've said, not getting hammered. So we're not conceding as many goals. Chances that we're giving up feels less. You might not want to look at our games in Manchester City, but we're not getting hammered in those matches. Maybe that's more luck than tactics, but we're actually creating a lot more. Our XG at home against Luton, whether you're a fan of XG or not, was just below 3. Yeah. That's good. That's what it should be. You should be creating roughly 2 to 3 chances at home in every game, and that's now happening. But there have been, Manchester City aside, and Liverpool and Chelsea and those kind of games where we expected to lose. When we went to Aston Villa, it was the sort of away performance that I'd kind of expected to see all season. Backs to the wall, defensive grit, resolve, and the players playing, knowing that on paper Villa should beat us quite comfortably, but actually we're doing everything else right. And then when we get our 1-2 sniffs at goal, we take one. And that's been what's happening. Now, you could look at Luton at home and say, well, we dominated certainly the second half. We had far more chances. We were 2-1 up with 71 minutes played. Luton didn't have a single shot on target the rest of the game, and we lost 3-2. That you can't really legislate for that, but it's happened. And as the kids say, we move.
Yeah, they do say that. Yeah. Do you, just quickly then, before we move on, do you give yourself any hope? Or I know that I hate this question. I hate myself for asking it, actually. But do you give yourself
for asking it?
Totally understandable. Do you give yourself any hope, or are you just resigned to the fact that you sort of planning ahead to next season already, or is that a bit? I don't know,
look at it,
defeatist.
Right? Let's say West Ham beat us. You'd have 37 points from 21 games. We won't get to 37 points, and 38, 39 is really what you'd be looking at in a normal Premier League season to survive. And we are on 9 points. If Everton are deducted 20 points, another 10, they'll be on 7. That's only 2 points behind us. We haven't been deducted any points. It's a terrible state of affairs. We've only won 2 games, and we've only drawn 3. We have been terrible in front of goal. We've scored as many goals as games we've lost, and we are just letting in far, far too many. No team in the league is letting as many goals as we have, and our goal difference is enormous, which means if we do try and survive, it's not going to be goal difference. If we're level on points, it's going to be the thing that keeps us up. We now just have to win games we're not supposed to win. We have to have a lot of luck, and realistically, we have to hope other teams not only drop points, but perhaps there's a bit of that off the pitch 2024 games are settled in the courtroom that might actually help us. But you don't want to rely on Nottingham Forest, Everton, and maybe Manchester City all being.
I would.
It's not how
I think most football fans would enjoy that one. Just what did you make then? Obviously, you said the performances have improved. What did you make of Chris Wilder's return? Because I think last time we were on, it was in the offing, and perhaps a story had just come out that there was a potential that he could come back. What did you and do you make of it being Wilder the man to return? Because it obviously felt like it was the right time for Heckingbottom to go.
I knew it was probably going to happen when I first asked a few of my journalist pals, like, is this nonsense or is there something in this? And I kind of got the ... or just the eyes emoji sent back to me. And I kind of thought, right, this is probably going to happen at some point, but I was surprised at the timing. I thought that there was probably a better time if you are going to change the manager. I was really, when I first heard about it, I was quite surprised because Chris Wilder got Sheffield United promoted. Paul Heckingbottom got Sheffield United promoted. It looks like we're going down, so you need someone that's going to get us promoted. It felt like much of a muchness. The man who's already been there, coming back, a man who's, whilst he left before we went down, Chris Wilder, all intents and purposes, took us down. But he's also the man that helped us finish 9th in the Premier League and got us playing the best football I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. So Chris Wilder is loved by Sheffield United fans, formerly as a player and as a manager. It's great to have him back. I felt sorry for Paul Heckingbottom. If anything, as Steve Cooper's seen, sometimes you are punished for overachieving. And if Paul Heckingbottom, if he hadn't got his promotion last season, he could easily still be in the job. So it's just the way football goes. And let's get behind Chris. We all love Chris. We never wanted Chris to leave in the first place.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I do. It's really odd that concept, isn't it? We find it the same at the moment with David Moyes. Definitely getting so much grief, because of how good he's been. It's just absolute. It's a mind-bending concept.
Look at Charlton. I always say, look, everyone wanted Alan Kirbishley because he was boring and they would finish 12th, 15th every season.
Yeah.
Get rid of Curbs. Let's kick on.
Yeah.
Charlton will not be back in the Premier League in the next 20 years. And you've got to be careful. I've got a good friend who's a Charlton fan. I remember last time we played them, he sent me a message and said, "We'll never play you again." So convinced they are going one way and one way only.
Yeah, I quite agree. I couldn't agree more. And me and James, my co-host, we've had to strike a pact that we're not going to do the Moyes in or out conversation anymore, because I am so staunchly Moyes in. And he's not that he's Moyes out, but he just sort of tries to, let's be honest, he plays to the crowd a little bit, because, to lots of our Moyes out listeners. But I just find, I just find it completely baffling. Because the fact is as well, it's not like with Kirbishley, he was at Charlton for, I don't know, 20 years or 15 years, something like that, a long time. David Moyes, West Ham have been good for 3 years. And we weren't even that good last year. We were pretty pants in the Premier League, and we won the Conference League, which was amazing. But it really, really baffles me.
Well, what a lot of people don't know is Ronan Keating sang the song "Life is a Roller Coaster," which is actually about West Ham under David Moyes. Each season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, excellent foresight from Ronan there. But Hal, let's talk about the game then. Obviously, West Ham beat Sheffield United 2-0 in the reverse fixture. Jared Bowen and Thomas Souček with the goals. What do we expect? Because we are in poor form at the moment, and none of our good players are anywhere near the first 11. Lucas Paqueta injured, Mohamed Kudus at AFCON, Jared Bowen also injured. Said Benrahma got sent off in the Cup, doesn't want to play for West Ham. He looks like he'll go this window. Pablo Fornals is off probably almost certainly the end of the season. So his commitment has dropped somewhat. He's not getting much game time. Going forward, if we score a goal, I will be stunned. Danny Ings, don't get me started. Honestly, if we score, I'll be stunned. So I would take a point off of you right now, which does seem an odd approach going to play against a team who are bottom.
Well, let's just agree not to play the game, or we'll just settle for a point each.
Have a point each, yeah.
What you?
Yeah. What are you expecting?
Well, Danny Ings, it sounds like Danny stings if he scores then, because he's often been pretty dangerous against us. But every West Ham fan I've spoken to thinks he's pants. So he's
worse.
He's guaranteed to. Well, actually, I don't know why pants is a derogatory term. Pants are extremely useful, and I wear them every day.
I wear them most days. Yeah.
Brilliant, great.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Sometimes I even wear them to work.
I mean, it's 2024. Doesn't everyone work from home now?
Well, it's true. Yeah, he says sat in his office.
Look,
but
Bowen might make it. I said on my own preview that if Bowen is 80% fit, David Moyes might risk him. So integral is he? And of course, we saw that in the reverse fixture. And I know that the players out are big players. West Ham, though, are still sixth in the Premier League, and still with your depleted squad, you are better on paper than Sheffield United. But thankfully, football doesn't work like that. We're at home. We've had a nice long rest. You've just lost to Bristol City on a Tuesday night, a game that you wouldn't have wanted to have, particularly as you'd have thought Bristol City at home in the third round. Get through that. Nice little break before Sheffield United. The last thing any West Ham fan wants is a team now of scrappers with a new manager who's just won their last game on the bottom of the table, and you've got to go away from home. And Sheffield United and West Ham fans don't like each other. Now, the players won't have any concept or even care about what happened in the middle of the noughties, but many of our fans still do. So it's a grudge match as well. Throw it all in. It'll either be a fantastic spectacle or it'll be dreadful.
Happy days. Well, look, Hal, I must admit, I declared to myself before, I was like, right, I've done the Tevez chat with him before. I'm not going to ask about that anymore. That ship has sailed. I felt like I was the only one.
You said ship, right? When you think of Tevez.
That ship. Yeah. That ship has sailed. And I think I was the only one sort of caring about that anymore. But expect a good atmosphere. And I would definitely take a point now it's almost statistically impossible, isn't it? Having got 9 points in the first half of the season, and that you've got a new manager.
So embarrassing when you say it out loud.
But it's almost impossible that you'll go another 19, 18 games or whatever it is you've got left and get a single digit point haul. This just screams, because of all the things you said, one of those games where you get at least one of or three of very few points that you may get in the second half of the season. So if you're going, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you saw a Sheffield United win.
We just need to get more points than Derby County. That's actually all I'm hoping for.
What is that? What was 15?
I think it's less than that.
Is it less? Maybe 12?
I think it's 11, but
yeah. I mean, let's do some on-pod googling, shall we?
Well, I think that was it. I mean, I'm not sure. I think it was 11, but I might.
Yeah, but are you? Well, yeah, yeah. How many points did? 11. You were correct. Yeah, 5 points to you. Well done.
So, well, I'd like 5 more points for Sheffield United, because that would mean then we're not. I don't want to be the team that, because people will talk about it for years.
Yeah.
Whoever replaces Derby, it'll be in 10 years' time. Who's the team that got the lowest ever points total in the Premier League? I cannot have that be my team, because we are not the worst team in Premier League
ever. No, quite. And if I'm quite honest, like I say, I expect you to, with your 9 points already, to surpass Derby's 11 this weekend. So look, Hal, thanks very much indeed for coming on the We Are West Ham podcast at How the Blade on Twitter, and it's the Sheffield United Way if you fancy listening to a bit more of a focused Blades view ahead of the game at the weekend at Bramall Lane. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for Hal for joining us.